Welcome back to our studio, and today I am again excited to greet you, sir. Thank you for coming to the show, Mr. John Kabateck.
Thank you so much for having me, Victor. Always great to be here.
Always great to have you. Last time you invited us to your studio. It was a great experience, a beautiful building, beautiful office, and since then I've learned a lot about all your activities and all that you help the businesses, and really, really impressive. So.
Thank you. And we have the best coffee in downtown Sacramento, so come back anytime.
Before we dive into the topics of today's mission, could you please share with us what have you been busy since our last meeting?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me. It's always great to be here, support what you do. Always a pleasure and privilege. You're always involved in helping the community, and that's so wonderful. We've been very busy speaking to the community. You know, I'm still very pleased and privileged to work with small business owners. While I have my firm, the Kabateck Strategies, which works on a lot of business-oriented, jobs-oriented coalition building, from legislative to ballot measures to other issue advocacy efforts. I really am proud of the hat that I wear as the California director of the National Federation of Independent Business. We represent about 13,000 small businesses, a number of them in the Sacramento region, but across the state. And all of them right now feel like they need that voice. So we're very busy with them, trying to help keep their costs down, streamline regulations, and just most importantly, Victor, give them hope for the opportunity to pursue their dream, to be successful entrepreneurs and help their community.
That's not just wonderful, but also very noble, because the small and mid-sized businesses, they are the spine, the health of the economy. It's been around internet a lot that inflation, printing money, all these different actions that are happening in the country, whether it's true or politicized, that they're wiping out small businesses and middle class. What is the real situation? You deal with these companies with real world every day. What is the real thing? Let's bring some real information to the viewers.
Sure. Well, I think inflation is definitely a challenge and a real problem. I think one of the biggest problems and challenges we're finding amongst our entire members across the country, not just California with small business, is their challenge of trying to keep costs down so they can get more customers to walk through the door. But so many of them are faced with so many regulations, taxes, fees, just the challenges, even many of them still crawling out of that hole created by the COVID pandemic, even this many years later, that they're finding it difficult to do anything other than raise their prices to keep their lights on. You know, they consider their small business employees their extended family. You know, that front desk receptionist, or the person who's the cook in the business, or that line assembly worker that's been with them for years. They don't want to have to lay them off or scale back their shifts. So many of them have no choice but to raise prices. But the real landscape is, yes, inflation is a problem. But I think we're finding a lot of those regulations, workers' comp, a lot of those things that small businesses have to face every day, give them no choice but to have to do either raise their prices or scale back in the business. And, you know, simple math, they just don't want to scale back and harm the people that are their family, their very family there.
You've been running this National Business Association for quite some time. If you could share with us, amongst all of the businesses that you are working with, you're helping, which ones are, let's say, at ease a little bit, relatively? Which ones are in a more difficult situation?
That's a really good question. And you're right. I have been fortunate to do this for many years. I think when I started this job, my hair used to be brown. You know, it's a little grayer these days, a little more salt than pepper these days. You know, I would say probably the industries that are probably doing a little better in this industry or this time and space are probably those that have the opportunity to work on, more of like, I think, public-private partnerships, things where they're working, with the community, they're doing things where they've got contracts with the state or city. So many of them are finding that those alliances are very helpful. And I think also we find that small businesses that are in kind of the advertising industry, when there's challenging times, we find that a lot of them that are in advertising, communications, public relations, a lot of small businesses and big businesses don't hesitate to spend money on trying to really make their business look good. So these businesses that specialize in positioning and marketing and advertising actually do pretty well in this kind of an industry. But unfortunately, they're the exception to the rule. I think many, if not most, retailers, restaurants, people who are in construction even, are still challenged, even though we're trying to see a building explosion here. I think are really those in the service industries are just struggling. They're still trying to find their way. And it's hard. It's hard, especially in California.
That is very true. And it's very interesting that you've mentioned about the companies which are working on branding and PR and advertising. Many businesses, especially when it's critical time in the economy, they tend to cut down the budget on advertising. How do you persuade, let's say, members of your association to not cut, but actually extend and do more in terms of branding, outreach, marketing?
Well, I think what we're finding is a lot of them are getting very creative. It used to be the traditional ways that people would try and brand themselves, market themselves. Certainly, we outdoor advertising publications like yours are still very popular. I think with many because they really do resonate with a lot of folks at every level and every age. But I think many are turning to, the creative, right? Being more creative on social media, being more creative on their websites. I think they are finding more, they're even finding ways to sell on TikTok, right? That's my children's age and generation, but they're getting more creative, I think, with online and technological marketing, which still comes with a cost, but I think ones where they can reach a much wider audience and get a bigger bang for their buck.
Right. If, let's say, theoretically, you would have a company in your association, they would come to you and say, John, we are at a very difficult phase and we're struggling. We cannot pay for advertising. What would be your message of persuasion that, hey guys, you need that because if you don't, you'll just fail?
Yeah, I think what I try to tell people is you can't live in a vacuum. You can't be in a cocoon. One of the wonderful things we saw through COVID was communities really gathering around those businesses that were struggling. And that's great. I think we see, people in our neighborhoods, whether it's East Sacramento or Los Angeles or San Diego or Eureka or Mendocino, people who are in those communities able to gather around, especially the smaller to medium towns. But what I try to tell people is, even with that, you're limiting yourself by not getting out there and really expanding through technology, through multimedia, through ways that you can really reach the masses. So spending a few dollars on advertising is amazing in terms of people who can really find out about you. It's funny, when I first started my firm about 8 years ago, in about 2015, a friend of mine kept telling me, you got to get on LinkedIn, do it. And I said, come on, whatever, I don't know. I am not joking, Victor, that 5 minutes after I signed up my LinkedIn account, I got a note from a friend of mine that I used to work with in the Capitol who said, I had no idea you did this kind of work. Can we talk? And that client, to this day, I'm not joking, it has been with me for now 8 years and vice versa. So you never know until you cast that net out. Spend a few dollars, invest in it. Sometimes you don't have to spend much at all. Sometimes you can go online and there's free sites that can get you out there, but don't limit yourself to just that small nucleus. There's a lot of people out there who should know about you and can benefit from what you do.
That's very true. In your understanding, in your world, and also the way you would perceive and tell your clients, your businesses, what is brand and what is branding?
Well, I think what is brand, is really people understanding kind of what you stand for. I think a lot of people who know your brand and know kind of what your market is, what is that actual insignia that you make in society. it's kind of like, for me, it's like the campfire smoke that I can't escape. We go on a camp out, and you go to one section and the camp smoke follows you there, and you go to the other and it follows you there. With me, I think the brand has for many years, fortunately, been small business, and I think you should lean into those things that you do well and that you enjoy and that people know you for, and you've been helpful. So I think brand is really that insignia you make, that real marking you make in terms of what people find of your value. And I think branding is really probably part and parcel of that, but it really is kind of that getting that word out. I think it really is that kind of sharing with the world what you do, and really I think exposing those traits to far and wide audiences. So it's taking that insignia, but it's creating an artwork in many parts of the world with what you do. So I think that's pretty cool.
I really enjoyed discovering about your brand, and since our first interview, then all the researches that I've done about your mission, because you've done so much for everybody. How did you start working on your personal branding?
Well, I think I met with my brother. My brother, who is 7 years older, he's an attorney in Los Angeles. And when I was telling him that I was really interested in starting a firm of my own that was focused on giving real voters a voice, and really making sure that the seniors, veterans, small business owners, parents and advocates had a bigger voice in our public policy process, I told him that. And he said, well, if you're going to start a company, there's a couple things you should do. And it was great advice. One was surround yourself with a good kitchen cabinet of people you trust, who are diverse and can really give you that great advice, marketing, maybe legal advice, administrative and organizational skills. But find those 3 or 4 people that you really trust. The second one was a converse of that, which was be careful who you partner with. Be careful with people that you think may be right, and do some due diligence on people that you might hop together and be a part of that could be a problem. Just be mindful of that. But the best advice that he gave me was, like I said, go with what you're good at. Don't try and be something you aren't. Don't. I couldn't begin to be in the auto shop garage and try and look under the hood of a car. I would turn it into a pretzel, the engine, if I were doing that. It's not what I'm good at. I would like to be. It would probably save me a lot of money. But I knew kind of that I enjoyed small business. I enjoy working with other people, and I love and have the experience of coalition building. And I was able to find that was something we could translate into getting more California voices heard in the public policy process and political process.
Which were the most important decisions that you believe shaped your brand in such a well-maintained shape that you have right now?
Well, I think some of the decisions that were made in that process were hiring some staff. My late father, God bless him, I think he kind of kept his business very small, meaning himself, and him, one person. And I think that, advice that I also got from my brother and from other business coaches was, you can't grow until you grow. And you really need to build. And you and others have really done a great job of kind of building a great team and teams. And I know your multicultural business and Community Expo is one of those examples and Career Expos is one of those where you actually really network, right? So I think one of the things that was taught to me similar was, build a good network. Build a really good network. Don't be yourself, and don't hold everything close to yourself, or you really will suffer the consequences, or at least you will not see the world the way you could by letting other people come in and be a part to help you advance your vision and help them add to that vision. That's
very true. And I'm glad you mentioned about the expo. We met at the expo last year.
Mm-hmm.
And how was your experience?
Oh, my gosh. The Multicultural Business and Career Expo is one of the best events that is not just in Sacramento, but I think in Northern California and in the state. I was so amazed. I'll just say I was blown away every time that we've been a part of this with the ability not just to bring people together to put a little table out and market their wares and their services. It's much more than that. You're bringing community together to show the varying cultures of our community, of the Northern California community, and how we really are integrated and interact with each other and benefit from that interaction. I think what you and Sergey and the team here have put together shows the power of a community. I think it's wonderful because, especially I think in this political climate, whether you're left, right, middle, tall, small, whatever, there are a lot of people out there who are very prone to be very skeptical and, frankly, in many ways, negative towards each other. And the great thing is you send this message, which is it doesn't matter what political aisle you're on. We're all a community that needs to help each other. And you help those causes from education, community, people with disabilities, people looking for work, and people who just have unique fingerprints in this world. We're all different. Being able to learn how that. And I'm telling you how many people I've talked to coming out of that expo who really say, gosh, I never knew that person. I never knew they did this kind of stuff. We made some great contacts through it. So I'm encouraging everybody listening to this podcast to make sure they're a part of that expo this year, because it really is not just a way to go shake a hand. It's a way to build a relationship for a long term that you'll be glad you did. Many of them.
Taking all the experiences that you had last year, what are you bringing to the expo this year?
Yeah, we're really excited. Well, I really love the opportunity for us to be there and really talk about the value and the power of small business. I think with my NFIB hat, with my Kabateck Strategies hat, I think one of the things that we really enjoy doing is talking to people and letting people know how important small business owners are, why what they do matters in our community, for jobs, for people. And the wonderful part of it is that how much a small business matters to helping people in so many ways elevate their dreams to do what they want to do and help elevate their families' dreams. So I think a lot this year is going to be continue to amplify that power of Main Street, which is what you do anyway as a part of this expo, but I think it's the power of small business owners that many of them just don't think they have. And I will say, you work with so many different people with ethnic backgrounds coming here from all around the world, and that's a powerful thing. But I think it's wonderful to give those individuals confidence, whether you're people who are Asian, whether you're from Russia, from Armenia, which is my home country, right? At least half of me. Latinos, or people who are just Caucasians, but many of them feel intimidated that they don't have a voice. And I think one thing about this expo that blends very nicely with what NFIB does is the ability to give people the confidence to be a voice, have a voice, and to let them know that they're not alone,
God bless to that. Now that you've mentioned these issues in the society that we are facing and we are dealing with, also you've mentioned about political polarization. You've been in politics for quite some time. As we see right now, polarized left wing, polarized right wing in politics, everybody hates everybody. I would say that we do have some tensions of different ethnic groups not liking other groups, whether it's one or the other. You as a political leader, as a business leader, which ways do you see practically that we could use to cool off the situation in the society?
Another great question. You're very good. I really will say that one thing that we ought to be talking more about is the impact that decisions have on our children. I don't think enough decisions or discussions are circulate around what we ultimately do and what that means to our younger future generation. I think if we bring things back to our family and the children and policies that affect them, and everybody's a little different, I understand that. But I think if we come back to what our future looks like, and some have children, some may not have children, but we all know people and we all know a younger society and generation that deserves to have a good future. I don't think enough of that discussion happens. We often talk about things in the here and now for ourselves, whether you're left, you're right, you're in the middle, but we don't talk enough about the kids who we have, the teenagers that are in high school, the young kids who are just now adolescents in grammar school who are learning to read. I don't think we talk enough about what those policies mean. So I think more of a discussion around our future generation is lacking. and I think is much needed. That would be my thing. And I'm speaking as a parent, but also as somebody who's been a kid, and I'm fortunate to have had parents and surroundings that really, people who were great influences.
Right. I love it that you mentioned about it. And I've been researching a lot about policies of different presidents, and there are so many video interviews of President Kennedy before he was assassinated. And he says directly that having a weak, chubby, younger generation is extremely bad for the country. Now what we see, maybe not everybody is chubby, but it's kind of weak. For us, not being able to do 20, 50 push-ups was not a good thing. Not being able to do, 10 pull-ups was not a great thing. Now the situation, as I see it, I might be wrong, but it's in a way that media or people try to explain that it's okay to be out of shape, it's okay to be chubby, it's okay to be unhealthy. What is your vision about it?
Well, and again, I was fortunate to have both worked for former Governor Pete Wilson in the Capitol, but I also worked for the Terminator. And I don't think, Arnold Schwarzenegger did not suffer fools. He was always keeping an eye on you, making sure that you had time for your family, that you were keeping in shape. And he was, that's why he chaired the president's and the governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports before he became governor. And I think my part is a healthy body, healthy mind means you have a healthy life. And I think you're absolutely right. I think while I extolled the virtues of technology, Victor, about marketing and engaging, on the flip side of that coin, I think we have found our younger generation falling too much into that trap. We all do, young, old, middle age, of sitting there with our phones or our laptops and not getting up to walk about. So I think that our schools, the workplace, I think we all, as our families, need to be focused on a better work-life balance and a good physical fitness balance, and diet. I think diet is so critical, and I'm just as guilty, I'm sure, in some ways, but being mindful of living a long life. And again, I think that comes back to that discussion I just mentioned about, which is looking through the eyes of our kids and our younger generation. Do we want them to be healthy and have a future that's long and promising and successful? Absolutely. So we need to feed them right and encourage good, healthy habits for them. But it has to start with us.
Right. That's one of the things that I tell my clients on branding, that it begins with your shape.
Absolutely.
You can buy a suit. You can get not too many suits, but they have to look good, as you said before
Right.
we started rolling. But nothing buys the shape, and it's how this suit sits on you. It's not about I would definitely adhere to an advice of a person who is in shape, maybe in a cheaper suit than in a person who is unhealthy in a luxury suit. But since you mentioned about the diet, about the regimen, exercise, what is your plan? What is your diet regimen? What is that creates John Kabateck's brand?
Well, that's great advice. Well, as I mentioned, I really enjoy boxing classes that I do about 2 or 3 times a week on a personal note. And I think that comes back to what we were talking about. I think find what you enjoy. I think many people look at diet regimens or workout regimens as to things that you have to do that are looked at in the negative. Find out some sports or some activities that you enjoy doing. I do enjoy the boxing. It allows me to get my stress out. But some people love, just going to the gym and lifting weights. I know you and I have talked about mixed martial arts and that kind of stuff. And everybody's got areas of excitement, but also can be good workout, right? Same with food. Find foods that you enjoy. My gosh, there are so many places and services that provide food that is good for you, but tastes excellent. And doesn't need to be greasy and let you feel all down. So find things you like. There is nothing out there that says that a healthy regimen means that you have to deprive yourself. In fact, I think in many ways there are some things in both of those areas, diet and exercise, that are pretty fun and you'll enjoy. But again, I'll say once in a while I do enjoy a hot fudge sundae. Once in a while.
Well, it does make sense. When I used to compete, I kept it to extreme. I would never have anything that isn't healthy. I did not have any cheat days. But then I've talked to a pretty successful business owner, And he says, no, I'll have a donut. Yes, I'll keep my regimen very strict, but I'll have a donut. What if I die tomorrow?
Yeah.
I don't want to die unhappy. I want to experience this donut. Yeah, I don't overeat it. I'll have one, but I won't go as crazy as a monk.
Right.
And it hit me. So I do find a little bit of flexibility.
That's great.
In that. So you do boxing. I assume you also attend gym because you do look fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I'm wearing a baggy shirt.
Well, it's the way it is
Very
laying on you.
kind.
Now, let's talk about your brand as a professional in business. You mentioned that you tied it to the small business, but let's dive into details.
Yeah.
What is it about?
Well, what we do at Kabateck Strategies, my firm, is three things. We very simply, elevator speech is this. We do coalition building. We help people build crowds around the right issues, be it legislatively, in the Capitol, on initiatives, ballot measures, or just helping clients build the right groups to have that voice heard. Number two, we work with associations. We do association strategies. So we will work with the Restaurant Association, Associated Builders and Contractors, other groups out there that really want to get their members' voices better heard, but they don't really have the strategies. We're working with the California Fuels and Convenience Alliance, which is representing a lot of these little convenience stores and service stations that really need a voice. So we help, secondly, we really help those associations that have really great staff, but they haven't really thought about the strategy of getting their members more engaged and heard in the process. And then the third is just telling the story, very similar to what you all do every single day, but making sure that those small business owners, veterans, seniors, working families, soccer parents, have a voice in the media, have a voice out there in social media, but have a really good narrative that they can tell. So coalition building, association strategies, and telling the story. And then our mantra, Victor, is giving a voice to those less heard. And so we're very happy about that.
How do you reach to the public, to the businesses, with all the possibilities of your company?
Well, we have a number of different ways that we let people know what we do. Certainly, as I mentioned, I'm fortunate to have Nate because he is much younger and much more dialed into the Generation X and Z community of really social media smarts, really understanding how to reach generations and audiences of various levels. But we also do have we definitely have regular information that we put forth. We do about every 2 weeks something that is called the Kabateck. And so it's a simple blog that we put out. And you should be, if you're not on the distribution, we'll get you to it. And our website is cabstrat, KABSTRAT.com. But what we do is we do just a little quick informational. We'll spotlight an important issue that's happening in the state capitol affecting small businesses and Californians. And we'll make sure that it's instructive so people can get involved too. But the Kabateck, social media, good networking. Like I said, you shouldn't be in a cocoon. You should also get yourself out there. So we're regularly traveling the state with different networking opportunities. And by the way, one of those, I will say, is the Multicultural Business and Career Expo coming up. It's another opportunity. It's not the reason we're involved, but it's a great opportunity, frankly, to network. Then I think on top of that, it's just getting a chance to convene just little coffees with people. Don't underestimate the power of just giving a call and saying, hey, you know what? I don't know if you know what I do, and I'd like to know what you do. Let's grab a cup of coffee. So maybe you're doing 3 or 4 coffees. You should have a little decaf that day. But those kinds of things mean a lot. And I think that human interaction, Victor, in this technological age is often lost. So we just do that.
That is very true. And I've noticed that even before we hit this intensity in the technological world, people were just hesitating to communicate with each other. And I remember at the academy, I had a teacher of the NLP. And obviously I got interested. And his course was something like Lie to Me, the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he told me in a private conversation, that people just need to talk. Don't be afraid of picking up a phone. And he gave me an example. We were walking from the campus, and two ladies were walking towards us, and he just asked them, "What time is it?" And they smiled, because they felt they were useful in the moment. And he says, "You see, this is that simple." And I took it to my heart, and I keep it with me all the time, and that's why we do the podcast, and
That's great.
we share everything. So we'll make sure to be on the list. Now let's talk about the NFIB.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. It's an important thing. You've been running it for quite some time. What is it? And what is that you do for the companies, for the businesses?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so the National Federation of Independent Business is California's and the nation's leading and largest organization that strictly represents and advocates for small and independent business owners. And people say, what does that mean? I think we said, look, we represent a small business, whether it's just a one store, 2 or 3 employees, all the way up to businesses that might have several hundred, as long as they are not publicly traded. As long as they have they're privately held business entities, we welcome them to NFIB. And it was founded by a guy in South San Francisco in 1943 who was a member of the United States Chamber of Commerce, who, while he enjoyed that membership, didn't really feel that on many occasions when an issue came down the pike, it was always something that they were advocating strictly to help small businesses. Because a lot of issues, businesses, to give you an example, small businesses pay about 3 times more to comply with taxes than larger businesses, about 37% more to comply and deal with regulations. And then small businesses are usually the vulnerable target of these like frivolous lawsuits, these shakedown lawsuits that hit them in communities. So very different. And he just basically, like a typical entrepreneur, he created a little club in South San Francisco in 1943, and that blossomed across the state and then across the country to where today we have a presence in every single state and in every state capital, and our headquarters in Washington, D.C. About 350,000 members across the nation, about 14,000 here in California. And we're just strictly that group that protects the right of our small business members to own, operate, and grow their small business. And we do that every day.
So if, let's say, theoretically, a business decides to join,
Yeah.
what they can benefit from?
Yeah. Well, the main reason people join is that there are a lot of laws happening in Sacramento, or legislative and regulatory activity in our state capital or in Washington, D.C. And when our founder created NFIB, we really didn't get a focus, and we don't have a focus on local issues. There's a lot of great groups like chambers and local organizations that really focus on that. But it was state and federal, as it has been to this day. And when somebody joins NFIB, I think the main reason is we heard one guy say, look, I'm in my machine shop all day. I am working on some widgets here and some stuff in the back. Please just make sure that our politicians are not hurting my business and hurting my industry. And so we're the ones out there. Many join because they really know that we're the voice in Sacramento and Washington where they can't be in those meetings. But we are representing them. And the cool thing about NFIB is we ballot our members. We don't have a board of directors that sits in a conference room with a whiteboard that says, I'm going to think this is a cool idea or that. We send a survey out to our members to ask them what issues are important to them. Healthcare, cost of healthcare, energy costs, regulations, taxes, of course. You can imagine lawsuit abuse. Those are some of the things that hit them pretty front and center. And they tell us. So then we take what they tell us to the state capitals. We take it to regulatory agencies. We take it to Washington, D.C. We were there last month. And they tell us what's important. So info flows straight up. We do have other services, credit card processing and payroll processing services and delivery discounts if you join. And many pay for their membership by that alone. But most tend to join to both network, but most importantly, make sure that they know people are fighting for them in those capitals. Because I think what they often find is it's not a left or right issue. We're nonpartisan. I think what we find is many of them say, hey, labor unions they represent about 8% of the workforce and the job creating community, and yet they carry this big stick in Washington and Sacramento and all our capitals, many of them. Yet they're only 8%. They're only 8%. Who's fighting for the 92%, which are small businesses? So it's making sure we do that. And then on the other side, a lot of times the big corporations are not always, like I said, the ones that have the best interest of small business. And they like a minimum wage, they can't absorb a minimum wage increase like a small business owner would be unable to. So, it's not a left or right. It's just small business owners who make up about 99.2% of the jobs community and business community saying, who's fighting for me? Well, that's NFIB. And that's what we do every single day at the state and federal level. Proud to do it.
Right. Well, we greatly appreciate that. And which are the networking opportunities, events that you hold at NFIB?
Yeah, so we do have. Oftentimes, we will convene local meetings in regions. It's a big state, so we used to have a much more comprehensive chapter program in different counties and cities, but that can be very cost prohibitive. So what we'll do is we will oftentimes convene with other chambers, with other groups. We will convene these kinds of opportunities to network. That's why we're pleased to be a part of the expo this year. And there's an example where we're collaborating with others who also have a networking interest. But we also, convene a day at the Capitol with our leadership council and our leaders. We convene online networking opportunities. So we do allow those kinds of things where people can gather locally, but also here in Sacramento. And then just in June, we actually convened a big fly-in in Washington, D.C., where people were able to go on Capitol Hill. But also, I think some of the best parts were at the restaurants and the bars and the coffee shops in between all that, getting to know each other, share stories, and say, look, like I told you earlier, people getting a realization that, look, I'm not alone on Main Street. I'm not alone. He or she is experiencing what I'm experiencing, and boy, did they have some good advice. So it's cool. Those networking experiences are really great.
It definitely is cool. How many chambers do you have in California?
We don't have a bona fide set of chapters around the state. We have about 14,000 members, but what we do try is we try to really build established, relationships, 6 to 8 different regions in the state, and try to get around to those where we can collaborate with other chambers, other business groups. And find those causes and opportunities, but that's kind of it's kind of a different rubric, but we really find it to work well. And like I said, we don't want to be in a cocoon by ourselves, so it's great when we go to San Diego. We make sure we're connecting with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Hispanic chambers, the Asian Business Association, and other groups out there that we can kind of collaborate on an event together with legislators or with somebody who's a notable leader. So it's really cool. It's a great opportunity.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing about that. Now that we're facing inflation, real estate market is acting a little bit insane.
Yeah.
What would you advise the business owners, maybe your members of FNIB or maybe future members, to do in this slightly insane environment, also, I guess, influenced by the political side? Our elections are coming up. How do we small, medium business owners have to behave now? What should we do to keep our businesses financially healthy and safe?
Well, I think one of the first things that a small business owner can do is establish some very, very regular and fluid relationships with those elected officials that represent you. And that can be their staff. I think that's really important to have those relationships with those people who represent you. And it's not necessarily just the politicians. It's perhaps the police officers in your neighborhood. It's the first responders. It's the local inspectors or people who kind of work in your. Build a positive relationship. Invite them to come to your business, see what you do, meet your employees, understand what you are all about. I think that's something that a lot of people get so busy running their business, they don't take the time to do that. I remember, and we all may know a guy named C.C. Yin, who operates about 25 to 30 McDonald's franchises in Northern California. You know how he got his start? He was in San Francisco, and he was just mopping the floors of a McDonald's in downtown San Francisco. And he started, as a local assistant manager, he started to invite police officers to come and give them free coffee and a chance to meet. Soon it became a community area. Soon that became the cleanest, most respected, and protected McDonald's. And because of that, he was able to grow that. And he became successful because he looked at it by building from the community. So I encourage everybody, you should build those relationships with not just the assemblyman or the mayor or the council member, but those people in your community that are pivotal, I think are really key. And then I think also building that relationship with your fellow business owners in your community. You know, keep an eye out for each other. There is kind of a neighborhood watch, especially with retail crimes and thefts. But I think on a more positive note, being there to let each other know, and you go knock on the doors of your neighbors and just let them know what you're doing. So I think that is that face-to-face that's also lost. And then, like you said, this environment is insane, Victor. It is crazy. Real estate and inflation and the costs that people are facing. So I think what I encourage people to do is, keep a rainy day fund. Be smart with your money. Teach your kids financial literacy, but teach your employees financial smarts too. And have reserves so that you're not just spending wildly. And then I also encourage small business owners to get it, in addition to networking with your neighborhood, find yourself a good business coach. Find somebody who's a good mentor, at least, who can tell you and advise you on how to run a good business.
And we're back with Mr. John Kabateck from Kabateck Strategies and NFIB, talking about politics, business, finance, and how to not be below the water level, the sea level, in this funny and very interesting climate that we're in. So as we were talking in front of the camera, behind the camera, we are in a pretty interesting, insane-ish kind of environment where prices are skyrocketing, from groceries to gasoline, real estate. Now it's extremely unprofitable to invest in real estate because there is no cash flow. There is just cash outflow. In all this, let me call it turmoil in this situation, which is also impacted, I assume, by the upcoming elections. Mm-hmm. What would be your piece, or maybe a few pieces of advice for us, for business owners, to keep financially healthy and safe?
Yeah, well, I would find yourself a really good business coach. I think it's not just a CPA or an accountant that's quality and qualified, but finding a business coach. I think somebody who can really help advise you on how to be more efficient in your business. I've been fortunate to have one for the past several years who really kicks me in the pants, in a good way, in an encouraging way, things that I need to hear. Sometimes it's that uncomfortable stuff about yourself and your business that you need to hear to make yourself, and when I worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger, he used to say, I always like people to be in an uncomfortable place. That's where you grow. But it's true. He would really tell us and encourage us to get in that area of discomfort because that's where you really grow. And so I encourage people to get a business coach who can be honest with you about what's good and what's working, but also where, you may have some weak spots, or at least areas you need to grow or think about that you might not have. And then I also tell people, as it comes to, if you're talking about financial growth or at least just economic security and certainty, as I said, I think it really is finding some good quality people around you, vendors, subcontractors, maybe just a couple other employees, or just people who are partners with you that can help you grow. Don't keep your business to yourself. I think, especially if you've got really unique talents, more need to know about that. And I think by delegating some of that out, it's going to allow you to focus on business development. It's going to allow you to focus on that client relationship, but also let you focus on kind of just the big picture. And not get caught up in some of the mundane, which always needs to get done, no matter what level you're at. But it's not the best use of your time to help be financially successful. And then finally, I would say find a really good bank. Find a good community financial partner. I think, this is people may be part of a larger financial institution and they're excellent. But I think if you can also couple that with a good local community bank, they show you that it's like this is the small business guy in me. They show you that personal care, that attention. and ability to kind of give you advice that maybe sometimes a larger institution just isn't equipped to do by its sheer size.
In your career, which was the most valuable financial advice that you've received?
I think the best advice that I got in my career is to, be smart with what your use of time is. And I think it really is. It's interesting because you talk about time and space and money, but the best advice I got from not just my brother and others is use your time wisely. Don't squander. There are only so many hours in a day. And the other bit of advice, if I can add another one, is pick up the phone and network with 3, 4, or 5 people a day if you can that you haven't talked to before. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation, Victor. It could be a little bit of, hey, and you're very good at this. I find that you network regularly, but a lot of people need to know, like, hey, I just want to grab a cup of coffee, or hey, I'm on the phone with you for a few minutes. I'm not sure if you know what I do. I'd love to know what you do. But one of the best bits of advice I got is asking people what their pain points are. Don't pick up the phone and say, here's what we do and here's what our company's all about. It's when you're meeting with people, ask them, what keeps you up at night? Where are your challenges? Where do you want to be successful? And by doing that, I think you also find where maybe your business can help them, or at least you can help build a better alliance with them. And they won't forget that.
That's a very interesting point. I think I have learned something very similar from Dale Carnegie, where he said, in order to build a successful communication, you don't have to talk about what's inside of you or what's your interest, but what's in the interest of your vis-a-vis of your partner or guest or whoever you're talking to. That definitely builds a very strong bond, and it's a nice bridge that stands. Mm-hmm. You are a father. You are a very experienced man in life, not just in politics and business, but in, let's say, behind the scenes, in personal. Now that I see, while working with youngsters, with teens, with young adults, they are extremely influenced by the media. Mm-hmm. And it's about the looks, it's about anything and everything, and also this polarization, not just in politics, but also division between men and women. Someone is good, someone is bad, and everybody has an opinion. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, how can we improve this climate for the kids so they grow healthy?
Oh. Well, I think being there for them and with them, as parents, from a parental side of things, some advice we got when our first child, who's now 26, was just born, was an older gentleman friend of ours, a senior, he was a grandfather at that time, said, be there for the kids when they go to sleep and when they wake up. Be there to tuck them in and welcome them to the new day, and of course through the day. But I think we can use that whether we're parents or not, is for our younger people, be there for them, be present, and be attentive. To your point, we get so distracted, right, with cell phones and television and phone calls. But kids demand attention. They don't really need a whole lot of high-tech stuff at a very young age, especially. But when they ask you to put that phone down, or when they ask you to play with them or talk to them or read to them, from a book even, do that and give them that attention, because that goes far with people of every age. But kids notice them when they're not listened to. And they can, children can be latchkey kids, and you can be, without you having to ever not be at home. I mean, you can be at home and the kid could feel like an abandoned latchkey child. So be there present with them. I think that's good advice for every parent.
Yeah, very true. Quite a few, probably years ago, we've gained this new category, so-called influencers, influential people on social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. What is your point of view and perspective on them?
On influencers, like Tech Talks and things like that? Is that what
Instagram,
you're referring to?
Yeah, TikToks, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think there's a real plus side to, technology like that, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and, I'll tell you an example. There's real plus side with, I'm trying to take up surfing. Gosh help me, right? But it's working so far. I've been up on the board. I've gotten up a few times, and I spend some of my time in San Diego with my fiance, and we share a place there. and split my time right now. But, you know, a buddy of mine this weekend said, hey, man, just look up YouTube. There are some great ways to learn just little tricks of the trade. So when you get out there, that's a positive. Tech Talks, amazing to help us learn how to be more successful with just words of wisdom. So I do think there's a real positive for our young people and for all of us to have the tools like those things that are valuable. You know, at NFIB, we conduct webinars. We've done a webinar on there's a new workplace violence prevention plan that every business must have come July 1 of 2024. A lot of people don't know that. But we conducted a webinar for our small business owners, and we had a great turnout to teach them with an attorney, how do they go about doing that? So I think associations, I think what we're doing with NFIB, I think Tech Talks, YouTube can be really used for a positive. But as we know, there's a reverse side of that coin. And I think the problem with a lot of our kids is, first of all, they're accessing the wrong stuff and the bad stuff. But sometimes I think they're just letting themselves fall into just a gully of just kind of just things that are not enriching their minds. And then I think also a lot of kids are using social media to compare themselves to others, and we see all this anxiety and depression that I just don't recall ever being as prevalent. And I think technology has added and fueled that. So, but I'd say I like to believe that Victor, there's a lot of great tools and resources, but it's up to the parents, the teachers, our community to educate our young people on finding the right things online, and not just online, in our communities to help enrich their lives, right, and make the best choices.
Right. It comes back to our own responsibility, because we have so many choices, and it's our responsibility to buy a healthier bread or a cheap and unhealthy bread. The same thing with the content, because right now in this era we have so many people creating content. Yeah, we have Dr. Google, and it's such a dangerous thing in line to cross, because it impacts physical health, mental health, everything.
But, to your point, I think it's like we were talking about diet, right? Once in a while, it's okay, and I'm not condoning none of the stuff that's wrong stuff to watch, but, my fiance goes online, and she's a fashion designer, and so she'll learn little tech talks, and she'll learn from others, and she'll be on chats with others in the industry to learn how to be more effective at marketing her business. But after a long week, she also loves bunny rabbits. So she'll go online and she'll see a little 2-minute video of bunny rabbits and little funny music in the back, just to kind of let her, kind of let go. We all need to do that. Just like, we were talking about a good diet regimen, exercise regimen. But once in a while, that donut or that little tiny scoop of ice cream, it's okay. It's okay. You gotta break it up once in a while.
Very true. That gelato hits the spot.
But you can't just can't let yourself become a victim to that and let it dominate all of your time. But I think there's a good balance that can be stricken with the right things that you're accessing.
Yes, that's brilliantly said. Mr. John, thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing your time, sharing your valuable piece of advice with everybody. We encourage everyone to check out the website of Kabateck Strategies, of NFIB, unite and build our economy together.